Forests are the lifeblood. They perform extraordinary and necessary functions that help us survive on the Earth's surface. The arboretum is one of the forms of plant life. It generally grows on land and needs varying amounts of water. Trees are generally distinguished from other plants by the presence of roots, stems and branches, and by their relatively large size compared to other plants such as grasses and algae. Also, the trees are of various sizes, including large and small. The functions of trees on the planet range from carbon storage and soil conservation to regulating the water cycle, supporting food systems, providing shelter for countless species of animals and birds, as well as building materials for humans. But humans often treat trees with indifference, cutting them down for economic gain or because they hinder human urban sprawl. Humans uprooted almost half of the world's 5.8 trillion trees 12,000 years ago, according to a study published in the journal Nature. About 15 billion trees are cut down annually, mainly in the tropics. Since the Industrial Revolution, the forest area has declined by 32%. Recently, the number of fires in the Brazilian Amazon forest increased by 84% compared to the same period last year. Logging and burning for land reclamation have increased in Indonesia and Madagascar. Although it is almost impossible for all trees to fall at once on the planet, except in the event of an unthinkable catastrophe, imagining such a gloomy picture of the world without trees, as in the movie Mad Max, may help us to estimate the scale of the disaster of losing trees. At first, if the trees suddenly disappear, most of the manifestations of biodiversity on the planet will disappear. The loss of the natural environment is the main driver of the extinction of animals around the world. The destruction of all forests will have catastrophic consequences for plants, animals, fungi and others, says Jimmy Prevdio, an ecologist at the University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Mass extinction of all living organisms will occur locally and globally. In 2018, Prevdio and colleagues found that overall species richness levels were 50 to 100% higher in tree-sparse areas compared to treeless areas. According to Prevdio, scattered trees may attract biodiversity like a magnet, providing the resources necessary for different animals and plants to survive. The climate on the planet will completely change in the event of the disappearance of trees in the long and short term. Trees act as biological pumps in the water cycle, drawing water from the soil and releasing it into the atmosphere in the form of water vapor. Forests thus contribute to the formation of clouds and precipitation. Trees may prevent flooding by blocking flowing water so that it does not pour into lakes and rivers, and work to repel storms and winds in coastal communities. The roots of the trees help to hold the soil in place, protect it from being washed away by rains and provide shelter for microbial communities. Lands from which trees have been uprooted will become more vulnerable to severe droughts. Floods will increase, soil erosion will affect the oceans and marine organisms. Many islands may be flooded after uprooted trees, which were blocking the ocean water. Uprooting trees will lead to the drowning of vast areas of land in the oceans, says Thomas Crowther, an ecologist at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. Trees also reduce the weather temperature in the areas where they grow. Trees shade the soil and maintain its temperature, and this dark part of the soil absorbs heat instead of reflecting it. Trees use the energy from the sun's rays to convert water into steam. And for this, the places from which the trees were uprooted will immediately become warmer. In another study, Prevdio and his colleagues observed that completely removing trees from an area of 25 square kilometers increased the temperature of the area from which they were uprooted by at least 2 degrees Celsius. The researchers observed a difference in temperature between areas planted with trees and those without trees. Trees mitigate the effects of global warming caused by climate change, as they store carbon in their trunks and remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. According to a report published by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, deforestation already contributes about 13% of total global carbon emissions, while changing land use patterns contribute about 23% of emissions. Paolo Dodorico, a professor of environmental sciences at the University of California, says that ecosystems from which trees have been uprooted will become a source of carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. Over time, the amount of carbon in the atmosphere will double. While young plants absorb carbon at faster rates compared to trees, they also release it into the atmosphere at a faster pace. Within decades, these plants will be unable to withstand the effects of global warming. When plants decompose, they will release huge amounts of carbon into the atmosphere, and the Earth's temperature will rise at unprecedented rates, the likes of which we have not seen since the appearance of trees. Huge amounts of carbon will leak into the oceans and cause a significant increase in acidity rates to such an extent that it could wipe out all aquatic life except jellyfish. Rising temperatures, disruption of the water cycle and loss of shade will take the lives of billions of people and livestock, and many forest workers will not find a livelihood. The firewood that many rely on for cooking and heating their homes will disappear. Woodcutters, leaf makers, fruit pickers, carpenters and others who make their living from trees will become unemployed, and this will have serious repercussions on the global economy. The lumber industry employs 13.2 million workers and generates $600 billion annually. Agricultural systems will also be disrupted, as crops that depend on the shade of trees, such as coffee, will decline, as well as crops that depend on birds and pollen-carrying insects that live on trees. Land that was once fertile in some areas will be destroyed by rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns, while crops will grow in other areas that were not suitable for agriculture. The soil will deplete with time, and the plant will bear fruit only with the use of huge amounts of fertilizer. Temperatures will rise to such an extent that it will be impossible to live and cultivate in most areas of the Earth's surface. As for the health implications, trees clean the air by absorbing pollutants and trapping fine particles in their leaves, branches and trunks, as researchers from the U.S. Forest Service estimated the amount of pollutants that trees remove from the air by about 17.4 million tons per year in the United States alone. We may see outbreaks of some rare or new diseases transmitted from animals that we are not used to approaching before, says Dodorico. He and his team observed that Ebola disease was transmitted to humans in areas where the patch of forest that used to be inhabited by animals has shrunk. If forests suddenly disappear, we will become more susceptible to zoonotic diseases, such as Ebola, Nipah virus and West Nile virus, as well as mosquito-borne diseases such as malaria and dengue fever. Numerous researches have revealed the benefits of trees and nature for our mental health. The New York State Department of Environmental Protection advises forest walks to improve overall health, reduce stress, raise energy levels and overcome insomnia. Trees also help patients recover, as a 1984 study indicated that landscapes contribute to speeding up the recovery of patients after surgery. Other studies have proven that spending time between grasses and trees relieves ADHD symptoms in children, and that green spaces improve children's performance in school. A study indicated that a 10% increase in the number of trees was accompanied by a 12% decrease in the crime rate in Baltimore. Kathy Willis, professor of biodiversity at the University of Oxford, says that now some doctors in Japan advise patients to spend time in the forests because of its health benefits. Trees are an integral part of the childhood memories of countless people, and have been the focus of many poems, literary novels, paintings and others. It has played a prominent role in a lot of pagan and monotheistic religions since the dawn of history. Buddha reached a state of enlightenment after sitting under a tree for 49 days, and Hindus worship at the sacred fig tree, which symbolizes the god Vishnu. In the Bible in the Old Testament, it is said that God created trees on the third day, before animals and humans, and in the Gospel, it is mentioned that Jesus died on a wooden cross made of trees. In short, human life will become hell in a world without trees. The manifestations of urbanization and Western lifestyles will disappear, and many will die under the weight of hunger, heat, drought and floods. Perhaps only tribes that know the secrets of traditional ways of living in treeless environments, such as the Aboriginal people in Australia, will remain on Earth. It is possible that the remaining communities on Earth will be more like colonies on Mars, managed by technology and not related to life as we have known, because the planet Earth is unique from other planets in the universe by the presence of life forms that scientists have been unable to explain so far. But if the trees disappear, most of the manifestations of life may disappear.